the secret of Psalm 23, that will change how you see God forever. Have you ever noticed how Psalm 23 is whispered at hospital bedsides, spoken at funerals, sung in quiet prayers, yet it's more alive than ever? It's just 6 short verses, but they've comforted kings and carried the broken through nights, so dark they thought morning would never come. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Simple words, right? But behind those words lies a secret, a revelation so powerful that if you truly understood it, it could change how you see everything. Your pain, your peace, your purpose. This psalm isn't just a poem, it's a doorway, a map that leads from fear to faith, from chaos to calm, from wandering to belonging. It's not about religion, it's about relationship. David didn't write this from a palace. He wrote it from the field, from the wilderness, from the real, raw places of life, where he needed God not as a theory, but as a friend. The Lord is my shepherd, not a shepherd, not the shepherd, not the shepherd of the world, my shepherd. Do you hear the intimacy in that? It's the sound of a heart that knows it's not walking alone. When David said those words, he wasn't declaring theology. He was declaring trust. He was saying, even when I don't understand where he's leading me, I know who's leading me. I know who's leading me. And that's the secret many of us miss. Psalm 23 isn't about perfect circumstances. It's about perfect companionship. God doesn't promise to keep you out of the valley. He promises to walk with you through it. He doesn't promise a life without enemies. He prepares a table in front of them. When life feels heavy, when the bills stack higher than your faith, when the diagnosis shakes your peace, when the silence of God feels louder than his voice, Psalm 23 whispers something the world can't give. You are not alone. It's the cry of every soul that's ever felt lost. It's the answer to every fear that says, you won't make it. And it's the invitation to every heart still searching for rest. So today I want you to slow down and listen, not just with your ears, but with your spirit. Because this psalm isn't meant to be read, it's meant to be experienced. Each line is a step, from need to fulfillment, from despair to hope, from running to resting. This is not just David's story, it's your story. It's the path of every believer who has ever whispered, Lord, I can't do this alone. And in that whisper, the shepherd answers, softly, surely, you don't have to. That's the secret of Psalm 23. It's not just about what God gives, it's about who he is. A shepherd who leads, a father who provides, a presence that never leaves. So let's walk this psalm together, because once you truly understand its meaning, you'll never read it the same way again. Chapter 1. The Lord is my shepherd. The power of belonging. There's something sacred in those first 5 words. The Lord is my shepherd. We say them often, but do we really feel them? Because that single sentence is not just poetry. It's a declaration of identity. When David wrote those words, he wasn't talking about religion or routine. He was talking about relationship. He wasn't describing God as a distant ruler on a throne. He was describing him as a shepherd, close enough to know his name, patient enough to guide his steps, and strong enough to fight off anything that tried to destroy him. A shepherd lives with his sheep. He doesn't visit them once a week. He dwells among them. He leads them, not by force, but by voice. He knows their tendencies, their weaknesses, their favorite paths, and still chooses to love them. That's what David was revealing. God isn't just watching over you. He's walking with you. And if you've ever felt invisible, forgotten by people, ignored by the world, this is your verse. Because it tells you that God sees you, not as a number, but as his own. When you say, the Lord is my shepherd, you're saying, I belong somewhere. I belong to someone. Think about that for a moment. In a world that constantly screams, be enough, do more, prove yourself, God whispers, you already belong. You don't earn the shepherd's care. You receive it. You don't have to chase him down. He's already chasing after you. Jesus called himself the Good Shepherd. He said, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." That's not control, that's connection. It's love that guides instead of guilt that drives. When you truly believe that God is your shepherd, something inside you changes. Fear loses its grip, striving slows down. You start to walk with peace, even in uncertainty, because you know you're not wandering aimlessly. You're being led intentionally. Maybe right now, you're in a season where you can't see where God is taking you. The doors you prayed for haven't opened. The answers you hoped for haven't come. And it feels like the shepherd's gone silent. But hear this. Silence is not absence. Sometimes the shepherd leads you through quiet places because he's teaching you to recognize his presence, not his performance. He's showing you that his care is constant, even when it's not obvious. A sheep doesn't need to understand the map. It only needs to trust the shepherd. And that's where peace begins. Not when life makes sense, but when your heart finally rests in the one who does. Maybe that's the real power of belonging. Not having every answer, but knowing you'll never walk alone again. The shepherd isn't behind you shouting orders. He's ahead of you, calling your name. And every time you whisper, "The Lord is my shepherd," heaven whispers back, "Yes," and he knows you by heart. Because the secret of this first line is not about authority, it's about affection. It's about waking up every day and realizing that before you prove, produce, or perform, you are already loved, already seen, already led. And when that truth takes root in your heart, fear fades, peace returns, and you finally begin to live not as someone searching for belonging, but as someone who's already found it. Chapter 2. I shall not want. Learning to rest in enough. There's a deep sigh in that second line of Psalm 23. I shall not want. It sounds simple, almost quiet, but it carries the weight of a lifetime. Because what David was really saying is, I have everything I need, because I have the shepherd. That's not the voice of a man who had no problems. It's the voice of a man who had learned the secret of peace in the middle of them. We live in a world addicted to more. More money, more approval, more success, more attention. We scroll through endless images of other people's highlights and start believing that our peace is missing, because something in our life is missing. But David says, I shall not want, not because his life was perfect, but because his shepherd was present. When the heart finally understands that presence is greater than possessions, contentment begins. Think about it. Sheep don't worry about tomorrow. They don't make plans, build barns, or compare their wool to others. They simply follow the shepherd, trusting that wherever he leads there will be enough. What if we lived like that? What if we stopped chasing everything we think will fill us, and started resting in the one who already has? The truth is, discontentment doesn't come from lack. It comes from forgetfulness. We forget who provides. We forget who sustains. We forget that even in wilderness seasons, manna still falls from heaven. And when we forget, we strive. We work harder. We worry longer. We start thinking, if I can just get there, just have that, just be them. But the shepherd is whispering, you already have me. There's freedom in that realization. Freedom from the pressure to perform. Freedom from the lie that peace is something you earn. Freedom to rest, even when the world says, keep running. You see, God's definition of enough doesn't always match ours. Sometimes, He gives daily bread, not lifetime supply, so we'll keep walking close. Sometimes, He closes doors we begged for, because He's protecting us from a burden we weren't built to carry. And sometimes, He lets us feel the ache of wanting, so we'll rediscover the joy of depending. I shall not want isn't a statement of arrogance. It's a confession of trust. It's saying, even when I don't have everything I desire, I still have everything that matters. It's peace that doesn't make sense to the world, because it's not built on circumstances. It's built on shepherd care. So maybe the question today isn't, what am I missing? Maybe it's, what have I already been given that I've stopped noticing? The breath in your lungs, the sunrise that met you this morning, the friend who checked in when you were silent, the forgiveness you didn't deserve but received anyway. All of it, reminders of a shepherd who provides, even in the small things. When you start seeing life that way, something shifts. Gratitude replaces greed, rest replaces restlessness, and you begin to realize that enough was never a number. It was a person. So today, whisper it like a declaration and a promise. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Because when you have him, even in your lack, you still live in abundance. Chapter 3. Green pastures and still waters. The shepherd's path to renewal. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. There's a rhythm in those words. Slow, gentle, almost like breathing. It's as if God himself is inviting us to stop running and start resting. Because the truth is, most of us don't know how to rest anymore. We live on edge. Our minds race faster than our feet. We wake up tired, chase the day, scroll until midnight, and call that living. But David discovered something the world still hasn't learned. Renewal doesn't come from striving. It comes from stillness. The shepherd knows when your soul is weary. He knows when your faith feels thin and your prayers feel forced. And in those moments, he doesn't shout, "Try harder." He whispers, "Come rest." He makes me lie down in green pastures. That line always catches me, because sometimes the shepherd has to make us rest. We fight the pause. We resist the quiet. We keep moving, afraid that if we stop, everything will fall apart. But rest isn't weakness. It's worship. It's how your soul remembers who's in control. Green pastures aren't just about comfort. They're about provision. When a shepherd leads his sheep, he knows exactly where the grass is soft, where the water is clean, where the soul can breathe again. The sheep don't have to find those places. They just have to follow. That's what God is doing with you. He's not leading you aimlessly, even when the road feels unfamiliar. He's guiding you toward restoration. And sometimes that restoration looks like a closed door, a slower pace, or a season of silence. Not punishment, but preparation. The still waters represent peace, not the kind the world gives, but the kind that settles deep inside you when you finally stop fighting the shepherd's pace. Have you ever noticed that rushing water scares sheep? It's too loud, too chaotic. They can't drink from it. So the shepherd finds still waters, places where fear fades and trust returns. God does the same for you. He leads you away from the noise, the opinions, the pressure, the chaos, to remind you that your soul was never meant to live in constant motion. You were created for communion, not exhaustion. Maybe that's why life sometimes slows down without your permission. Maybe that delay, that detour, that season of waiting, isn't God forgetting you, but God restoring you. He's saying, lay down, breathe, drink, remember who you are. When you allow him to lead you beside still waters, something sacred happens. The worry starts to loosen its grip. The weight begins to lift, and in that quiet space, the shepherd starts to speak again, not with thunder, but with tenderness. He restores my soul. That's the heart of it. Not just fixing what's broken, but bringing back what was lost. Your joy, your wonder, your peace. The parts of you that got buried under the noise. So if you're tired, not just physically, but soul tired, hear this. You don't need to figure everything out. You just need to follow the one who knows the way to rest. Let him lead you. Let him slow you down. Let him restore you. Because in his hands, rest is not wasted time. It's holy time. And when your soul finally drinks from still waters again, you won't just keep going. You'll begin to live renewed. Chapter 4. The Valley of Shadows. Finding peace in fear. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. This is the verse we all know. And yet, It's the one that feels the hardest to live. Because every one of us will, at some point, walk through a valley, a place where faith feels thin, where prayers hit the ceiling, where light seems gone, and shadows stretch longer than hope. David didn't say, "If I walk through the valley." He said, "When," because valleys aren't optional. They're part of the journey. The same shepherd who leads us to green pastures also leads us through dark places, and not because he's cruel, but because there are things we can only learn about his heart in the dark. The valley is where trust stops being theory and becomes real. It's where "the Lord is my shepherd" is tested. It's where we stop depending on what we see and start relying on who we know. Notice something powerful. David doesn't say the valley of death, but the valley of the shadow of death. A shadow can't exist without light. That means even in your darkest place, light is still there. It's just hidden behind something temporary. The shadow is proof that the light still shines. Fear whispers, "You won't make it." But the shepherd answers, "You're not walking alone." And that's what changes everything. David says, "I will fear no evil," not because evil isn't real, but because God's presence is stronger. It's not denial, it's dependence. He's saying, "The danger is real, but so is my deliverer." When you're in the valley, you can't always see the shepherd ahead. Sometimes he's behind you, protecting you from what you can't see coming. Other times he's beside you, matching your pace, whispering, "Keep walking." He never leaves. He just changes position based on what you need most. The rod and the staff, they comfort me. The rod defends, the staff directs. One fights for you, the other guides you. Both are proof that you are not forgotten in the dark. And maybe that's the secret David learned, that the valley doesn't last forever. It's not a place to build a home. It's a passageway to something greater. You walk through it, not around it, not under it, through it. So if you're there right now, walking through grief, loss, betrayal, or uncertainty, don't mistake your valley for your destination. This is not the end of your story. It's the middle, where God is proving his nearness. Sometimes peace isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of someone greater than fear. It's that quiet assurance that says, "Even here, even now, I am held." The valley may echo with pain, but it also resounds with promise. Because every shadow is temporary, but the shepherd's love is eternal. And when you finally walk out the other side, you'll look back and realize, it wasn't your strength that carried you through. It was his presence all along. Chapter 5. The table in the presence of enemies. Grace under pressure. You prepare a table before me, in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. This verse turns everything upside down, because when we imagine victory, we think of escape, getting away from the people or the problems that hurt us. But God does something better. He doesn't take you out of the battle. He blesses you in the middle of it. You prepare a table before me. Picture that. A table set not in peace, but surrounded by conflict, enemies watching, pressure rising, and right there, God spreads a feast. He's saying, "Sit down. Don't run. Don't fear. Eat." Because when the shepherd sets a table, it's not about food. It's about fellowship. It's his way of saying, "You're safe with me even here." In ancient culture, sharing a table meant covenant, belonging, relationship, protection. And here's the beautiful part. God doesn't wait for the fight to end to show his favor. He shows it while the arrows are still flying, while the gossip still spreads, while the betrayal still stings. That's grace under pressure. Divine peace in the middle of human chaos. It's not the absence of trouble. It's the presence of the shepherd who never loses control. You anoint my head with oil. In David's time, shepherds would pour oil on a sheep's head to heal wounds and keep insects away. It was both protection and comfort, a tender act of care. So when David says that God anoints his head, he's saying even when life hurts, God still heals. He's not just providing for you, he's protecting your peace. The anointing isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like endurance when you should have broken. Sometimes it's joy that doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's the quiet strength to stand tall while surrounded by opposition. That's the mark of someone who's been with the shepherd. Calm in conflict, steady in storms, gracious in the face of cruelty. And then David says, "My cup overflows." Notice, not after the enemies are gone, but while they're watching. The overflow isn't delayed until life is perfect. It begins when you trust the shepherd enough to stay at the table. Because the real victory isn't revenge, it's rest. It's sitting down while the world expects you to fight. It's smiling when bitterness would have been easier. It's choosing gratitude when the enemy wanted you angry. Maybe the people who hurt you don't deserve forgiveness, but you deserve peace. And peace only comes when you stop standing in battle posture and start sitting in trust. That's what God is offering. Not an escape from the storm, but a feast within it. He's saying, "Let me feed your faith, not your fear. Let me fill your cup until it overflows." So if you're in a season of pressure, if the enemies seem close and the noise feels loud, don't run. Sit, breathe. Watch him turn your battlefield into a banquet. Because when God prepares a table for you, no enemy can unseat you. They can watch, but they can't win. They can whisper, but they can't stop what God has already anointed. And one day you'll look back and realize, the place that once felt like warfare became the place where your faith grew wings, where grace stood taller than grief, where peace became your proof that the shepherd never stopped being good. Chapter 6. My cup overflows. Living from the overflow. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This final verse isn't a whisper. It's a victory cry. It's David looking back over his life, through every valley, every tear, every triumph, and saying God was faithful in it all. The journey that began with "the Lord is my shepherd" ends here, in overflow. Not the overflow of money or fame, but of mercy. Not of power, but of peace. Not of everything going right, but of everything turning out for good. David isn't talking about a perfect life. He's talking about a pursued one. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. In Hebrew, that word "follow" means to chase, to pursue relentlessly. Think about that. God's goodness doesn't just accompany you, it chases you. Even when you run, even when you wander, even when you forget who you are. Wherever you go, grace goes after you. Mercy doesn't wait for you to deserve it. It meets you where you fall. That's what it means to live from overflow. It's living with the awareness that you are not running toward blessing. Blessing is running toward you. My cup overflows. Overflow isn't about excess. It's about expression. It's what happens when God fills you so completely that his presence begins to spill into every area of your life. How you speak, how you forgive, how you love. You stop living from emptiness and start living from abundance. You see, the shepherd doesn't just want to give you peace. He wants to make you a vessel of it. He wants your life to overflow into the lives of others. Your calm in chaos, your kindness in cruelty, your faith when fear is contagious. Because people will see your peace and realize it's not natural, it's supernatural. And then David says something even more beautiful. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Not someday, not only after death, but beginning now. To dwell means to live, to remain, to make your home. It's David saying, I'm not visiting God's presence, I'm living in it. That's the ultimate secret of Psalm 23. Not just that God leads you, but that he stays with you. Through the pastures, through the valleys, through the battles, his presence is the constant. And when you live aware of that presence, you begin to realize you're already home. Maybe you've spent your whole life chasing things, stability, love, validation, success, thinking they'd fill the empty places. But the shepherd has been whispering, everything you've been looking for is found in me. Because the cup that overflows isn't filled with things, it's filled with him, his peace, his joy, his mercy that never runs dry. So when the world says you're not enough, You can smile and say, maybe not, but my cup is. When fear says you'll lose everything, you can whisper, goodness and mercy are following me. When life feels uncertain, you can rest knowing that your forever is already secure in His hands. That's the power of the overflow. It doesn't depend on your circumstances. It flows from your connection. Because once you've tasted the shepherd's goodness, you stop chasing what drains you and start living from what fills you. And when you do, your life becomes a reflection of Psalm 23 itself, a journey from want to worship, from chaos to calm, from fear to fullness, from wandering to home. Conclusion: dwell in the house of the Lord. Psalm 23 begins with, "The Lord is my shepherd," and ends with, "I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." That's not coincidence. That's completion. Because when you finally understand who the shepherd is, you realize what you've been searching for all along. Isn't a destination, it's Him. Every verse in this song is a step closer to home. From belonging to rest, to renewal, through fear, through conflict, through overflow. It's the story of every believer. How grace finds us, leads us, restores us, and finally brings us home. Maybe you've been walking through a valley lately. Maybe the shadows have been loud, and the shepherd feels far. But friend, hear this. He never stopped walking beside you. The same God who led David through the wilderness is leading you right now. You don't have to see the path. You just have to trust the one who carved it. Because when the Lord is your shepherd, you can rest, even in uncertainty. You can sit at the table, even in the presence of enemies. You can breathe, even when life feels tight. And one day you'll look back and realize, every step, every season, every scar led you closer to His heart. That's the secret of Psalm 23. It's not about escaping life. It's about learning to live it with the shepherd beside you. To find peace not when everything's perfect, but when everything's in His hands. So as you finish listening, take a deep breath. Let go of the striving. Let go of the fear. Let go of trying to control the journey. And whisper it again. The Lord is my shepherd. If this message spoke to your heart, don't rush away. Pause here. Let the truth settle deep. And if you felt the shepherd's voice in these words, share this moment with someone who needs peace tonight. Subscribe. Stay close. Because this is more than a message. It's an invitation to dwell, to trust, to walk every day with the shepherd who never lets go. Surely goodness and mercy will follow you, not just today, but all the days of your life. And when you finally rest your head at night, may your heart know this truth: you are home, you are His, and the shepherd will never stop leading you.